51 years, the hardworking members of the York Regional Police Cold Case Unit have solved the cruel and ruthless murder of Yvonne Leroux.
After 51 years, we now know who killed Yvonne Leroux, and police are crediting investigative genetic genealogy, or IGG, for the break. The 16-year-old was last seen alive late in the evening of November 29, 1972. She was walking outside in the area of Oakdale Road and Finch Avenue West in the city of Toronto. The next morning, a passerby discovered Leroux's body 24 kilometers away in the middle of 16th Side Road between Jane and Keele in King Township. Investigators say she had sustained blunt force trauma to the head, and it was deemed a homicide.
You know, she was living a life like any other teenager would at that time. And unfortunate circumstances ended in her death. And that's the truth, and that's what we need to remember, is that it was a young girl whose life was snuffed needlessly.
Police reading a prepared statement from Yvonne's family during Wednesday morning's press conference.
Yvonne is far from forgotten, and this has affected our family through many generations. The case has remained a focus of attention in family gatherings and beyond, and has brought experiences that we would not wish on anyone.
Meanwhile, the offender, identified through IGG as Bruce Charles Cantillon, 26 at the time, he was known to police for having committed several violent offenses against women and had been incarcerated several times. His mental health being described as a factor in his repeated run-ins with the law. Investigators not sharing whether a motive was identified.
In 1974, 19 months after the murder, Bruce Cantillon committed suicide in Toronto. If he was alive today, he'd be facing a charge of murder.
Detective Jonathan Nauman saying major breaks in cold cases are emotionally complex.
There is a bit of excitement, but it's always tempered with understanding that this was a loved one of someone.
He says the IGG techniques used in this case were able to create a genetic profile from suspect DNA found and preserved from the crime scene. That profile then uploaded to public genealogical databases, the kind you might provide your DNA to learn about your ancestry. It's an emerging technique recently used to solve a number of cold cases. The goal is to identify relatives of the source of the DNA as a means of potentially narrowing down a suspect. Detective Nauman saying the sites that do allow for law enforcement uploads have very specific terms and conditions.
The people who are contributing their DNA are aware that it could be used for a law enforcement case.
He adds the relatives of Cantillon did cooperate with the investigation. In Aurora, David Zura, City News.